Yo, my friends, it's T-Man. I'm back again. Back with our favorite YouTuber, JasonBlaha, the gym lifting, recruiting, fitness gear slave. I'm going to do a reaction video to his video. JasonBlaha says, is muscle memory real, and how does it work? How does it work? Is it real?
Hey everybody, it's Jason Blaha here. Today I thought I would chat with you guys and gals about the topic of
You did? You thought you'd chat with us? Okay.
is muscle memory real, and do we have any idea of how it actually works? Because this is an interesting topic to me because
Is muscle memory real? Man, muscle memory, not if you didn't build any.
I've been in the game a long time. 48 years old. I've been doing this a little while. But I've had to deal with my own set of muscle memory stuff. Why? I spent 10 months in bed sick, had to learn to walk again, got really overweight.
Okay, what is having to do with muscle memory? Well, trying to walk and gaining weight. That has nothing to do with muscle memory. When they're talking about muscle memory in science, they're talking about these nuclei when your muscles atrophy because they synthesize protein. They synthesize protein, your muscles atrophy, and they're still there. So you can get them to synthesize protein by eating protein or lifting weights, okay? Either way. Let's go. I don't know. I don't know about this lifting weights thing. They synthesize protein. That's what they do, really. So if you have these nuclei, can you synthesize protein by overeating protein? Yeah. Do you need to lift weights in the gym to synthesize protein? No. Not really. You know what I mean? This is kind of really dumb. Let's say your muscles atrophied. Why did they atrophy? They're going to say, well, they atrophied because you're not lifting weights. I don't know that for sure. They atrophied because I'm not lifting weights, but they synthesize protein, right? That's what nuclei do. So why would they atrophy if I stop lifting weights? Are they atrophying because I stopped eating? Maybe I'm not eating enough to maintain that weight. See? Which one is it? Well, really, science is not really clear on that subject. They don't tell you. But you could try an experiment. If you've atrophied, eat a lot of protein and find out. Now, science says that your muscles can hypertrophy through overeating protein. So that must work then. Because I've read it in a section. I put it up on my old channel. It said that muscles can hypertrophy through overeating of just protein alone. Because there's nuclei there. They synthesize protein. Your muscles mass up and shrink every so often because it has to be like that. Because listen, there's a breakdown and a buildup of proteins all day long, right? Building up and breaking down. But what happens if I overeat? If I eat a lot of protein, if I eat a lot, what's going to happen if I have these nuclei? Well, they're going to mass up to a degree, right? Of course. Only to a degree of how many nuclei I have there. I need additional nuclei if I want more growth, right? All right. So what happens to these people that come into the gym? Well, let's see. I'll tell you what happens to these people when they come in the gym. So you guys initiated the first initiating exercise was concentric with eccentric, but then it rapidly adapted because concentric exercise is generally associated with the loss of sarcomeres in muscle, meaning the number of sarcomeres in series within the muscle fiber decreases, which is often referred to as sarcomerolysis, the opposite of sarcomere addition that occurs with eccentric exercise, where muscles lengthen under tension, which is called sarcomerogenesis. No, yeah. Okay, hold on. Hold on a second. So in this famous map here, if we go down here, nuclei overload precedes hypertrophy. Go down here, there's a famous map. Here it is. This map right here. Notice it says here, it says It says untrained first training satellite cell fusion. Okay. So where do these newbie gains come from? What he says, muscle memory. Where does this muscle memory come from? So what do you get when you come into the gym the very first time you lift? What are you doing there exactly? It says untrained first training satellite cell fusion, hypertrophy. Okay. But you're not getting more here on detraining. Why aren't you getting more on detraining? You're doing full eccentric concentric lifts, right? Are you? Not really. You're mostly doing concentric lifting now in the gym, right? And your eccentric has adapted. How has it adapted? Well, it's adapted because it's resistant from further how should I put it? Further assaults. You understand me? It's adapted from being whatever damaged. So this is what it looks like. So what is this? What is this exactly? What is this? Well, I'll show it to you. Here, what is happening here. So, so this is from NCBI right here at the bottom here. While concentric contractions initiate movements, that's what happens when you first come in the gym, initiating. Eccentric contractions slow or stop them. A unique feature of what? Eccentric exercises that untrained subjects become stiff and sore the next day due to what? Due to damage to the muscle fibers. Okay, so that's a unique feature of eccentric exercise. So we initiate with concentric and we lower with eccentric. So when you came into the gym, you got an adaptation. You got this damage. You were untrained. You became stiff and sore. You got this damage. And then you got these nuclei, and then they hypertrophied. Get it? The very first time when you came in the gym. But when you came back to lift again, right, what happened? Well, they adapted. Here's the adaptation with the training. While even trained individuals can experience DOMS after a heavy eccentric workout, regular eccentric training can lead to adaptations that lessen the severity of muscle damage and soreness over time. That's how it adapts. It adapts by resisting. It's resistant from further assaults by your lifting because it has adapted by getting stronger. It's strong now. And your eccentric is heavy, but your concentric is heavy, but your eccentric is light going down. And actually, you're not really even doing eccentrics anymore. You're mostly focused on concentric lifting. So you have now enslaved yourself to concentric lifting. See what I mean? Yeah. That's pretty much what it is. You get the idea. Yeah. All right. Anyway, whatever. That's JasonBlaha there. So these nuclei, they synthesize protein. Without additional nuclei, you cannot support further muscle growth. So he never built any muscle. He might have got these nuclei in the beginning, a little bit of them, like everybody. Some people do. It depends if you eased into your exercise and you got 0 nuclei. Then you call yourself a hard gainer. Those are the people that call themselves hard gainers. They never got an addition of nuclei coming into the gym.
And I spent 3 years not training. And I had to rebuild. And I had to kind of rebuild from nothing. So I personally have gone through a thing of being an advanced lifter before, right? Being an advanced lifter, well up over 200 pounds, over.
Ooh, over 200 pounds, an advanced lifter. You weren't over 200 pounds. You were fat is what you were, 200 pounds fat. 200 pounds fat, never built any muscle.
600-pound deadlift, all that stuff, and had to rebuild from absolutely nothing. Had to restart from square one at one time.
Yeah, okay, he's talking about lifting. Yeah, you have to rebuild your nervous system because it went away, it disappeared. So you have to rebuild that lifting stuff. Look how tiny he's become. Look at him. Just a shell of himself, a tiny little man.
And now, granted, this was, 14, 15. This was, 14.
Somebody needs to tell Blaha that chasing aesthetics means getting skinny. It doesn't mean building your body. Aesthetic means low body fat. Getting low body fat doesn't mean bodybuilding. It's not based on bodybuilding. Some needs to tell Blaha that.
15, I don't know how many years ago at this point. It's been a little while, right? It's been a little while. I want to say approximately 14.
See how he's enslaved himself to concentric lifting? Look how he lifts. It's all concentric. The eccentric, when it comes down, there's nothing really going on there. He's not really focused on the eccentric. He just goes like this, all the way down. Look how fast it comes down. If there really was a load of eccentric, if this weight was heavy enough on the eccentric, you couldn't just drop your arm down like that, bro. You'd have to resist the weight going down, because there's a slow stopping motion, because in the back of your brain would tell you this is dangerous. You have to control the eccentric. See what I mean? But there are foolish people out there powerlifting. They'll just drop the weight and still hold on to it, and it'll snap the muscle right off the bone because they're stupid.
Years I started training, a little over maybe. So it's been some time. All right, so I've had to deal with it.
See how easy it's coming up? It's coming down even easier with gravity. It comes down even easier because it went up really easy.
Yeah, so to me, this is a kind of an interesting topic. And what's going to get really interesting is when we look at the studies that they've done on long-term steroid users who came off, we see some really similar trends that matches the current hypothesis on muscle memory from lifting.
Oh, yeah.
So I'm going to get into that as we go a little further. That's really telling. So here's the thing.
Yeah.
Here's the thing.
What's the thing, Blaha?
What we believe the pathway that causes it has to do with muscle fiber nuclei. So
Oh, it has to do with muscle fiber nuclei. Oh, okay.
Muscle cells, unlike a lot of cells,
Where they come from, Blaha?
in our body, some cells only have one nucleus, right? We were taught that in basic biology, that a cell has a nucleus, and it's where all the DNA and RNA and all is held, right? It's where the genetic material is held.
Yeah.
And that is where all the different protein strands that do everything in the body are created in the cell. Okay? So it kind of creates the machinery for building the tissue. And in the case of the muscle tissue, right? But muscle cells have multiple nuclei.
Yeah, they do. And they can only synthesize so much protein. You're going to need additional ones.
Okay? They have multiple nuclei. Those nuclei don't die off. So what happens as a muscle cell gets bigger, like you build that muscle fiber, right? That muscle fibers, you've got a cell there. As that cell gets bigger and bigger and bigger from training.
But the additional nuclei that you got through artificial training, this is considered artificial. I'll explain this. This is fake. When somebody says artificial, they mean fake. In other words, you used something artificial to induce the nuclei to come out. It's not like we don't know that. Fuck, man. You could call it whatever you want to call it, but it's through artificial means you stimulated this to get these nuclei to come out. You understand me? You use these weights to stimulate it. It wasn't something that you did naturally in nature. You understand me? Like, I had to hunt and I had to stab this animal or something, and then these naturally occurred. You're doing something artificially, lifting a weight, trying to induce something to get these nuclei. But but people aren't doing that because they've enslaved themselves to concentric lifting. They're not there to build their bodies anymore. They're there to perform in gyms. They think gyms are performing stages to perform.
Or from drugs, we notice the same thing occurs. The exact same thing occurs. As the cell expands, it gets bigger, it increases the number of nuclei in it. The number increases.
What? No, it doesn't. No, it doesn't. He made that up.
To match the size of the cell.
No, it doesn't do that at all. No, it doesn't. You need an addition of nuclei, and you can only get it through damage.
All right, you see where we're going with this?
No, you have to damage the muscles and activate the satellite cell, and they donate their nuclei. That's what happens. They just because the cell got big doesn't say the cell creates more nuclei. This guy's nuts, man.
Anytime you lose muscle, the muscle cell shrinks, those nuclei stay.
Not necessarily. They can atrophy, they can go away. Your body can eat them. It depends.
The nuclei count stays.
Yeah, it does. It stays for a short period of time, but not that long. If you starve them, your body will eat them. They'll go away.
Long term, we know that it stays for years.
Yeah, they'll stay for years if you didn't starve yourself to death. You simply stopped working out and you stopped increasing this protein synthesis, whatever it was you were doing there. They can still hypertrophy if you eat a lot of protein, somewhat. So we already know that in science. But whatever. The point is, Blaha's crazy. I don't care.
So far, so what ends up happening, if you lose muscle mass, you don't lose the new nuclei you built. So what happens is...
Yeah, but what if you didn't build any new nuclei? What if you eased into your workouts and you didn't get any of these so-called new nuclei? Then what?
Let's say you doubled the size of a muscle cell over years, right? Quite a few years. So then you would double the size, the number of nuclei in there.
So if you double the size of your muscles, your nuclei will double the size? What the fuck is he talking about? No such thing. The only way you get these... He's lying to you. No, he's lying to you. They have a ceiling limit during hypertrophic process beyond where the satellite cell can donate any more extra nuclei to that domain to support further muscle growth. It tells you that in PubMed. He's lying. The cell gets big and then it creates more nuclei out of that cell. He's fucking nuts. He's nuts. No, it doesn't. Because everybody would be getting these nuclei lifting. That's why Blaha's so small. See, it's one thing to say it's one thing to say some fake thing about getting nuclei. It's another thing getting them.
Shrinks back down near his original size, you keep those same nuclei. The density goes up. There's a lot more of them in the cell. It's twice as many as there should be now. So when you go to rebuild the muscle, the nuclei, keep in mind, what do genes and nuclei do? They make proteins. It is factories for proteins.
No, they don't, man. They're factories for proteins. They synthesize protein. When a muscle is damaged, the addition of new nuclei to the muscle fibers primarily comes from satellite cells. Well, he says it comes from the cell when it gets bigger. When it gets bigger, it gives additional nuclei. He's crazy. So what causes damage? Where's this damage coming from? See what I mean? It says it fuses with the damaged muscle fibers, contributing to new nuclei to repair the tissue, essentially acting as the muscle stem cells, responsible for regeneration from injury, following injury, yada, yada, yada. So where does this come from? What exercise creates this damage? Eccentric exercise is widely recognized as a type of muscle contraction that is most likely to cause muscle damage, particularly when performed unaccustomedly, leading to significant muscle soreness and structural alterations within the muscle fibers. This is often referred to as exercise-induced muscle damage, EIMD. Yeah. But the way he says it, he's crazy. Anyway, whatever. He's not doing any of that. He doesn't do EIMD training.
It's where it's made in our bodies. Okay? You have twice as many of those factories.
Look, even when he comes down here on this lift, he's holding it. He's not going down all the way.
He's in there because it was twice as big. Well, that means that you can gain muscle. You can produce those proteins at a much faster rate, possibly.
You could, but you don't have any, so you can't.
Double the rate. In theory, you got double the nuclei. So we can gain the muscle twice as fast as we did the first time. So if those same muscle cells took you, 2 years to build, you might be able to do it in 1 year.
No, 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 no. When you get damaged, you go through a repair and a remodeling. They have to come out, clean up the dead tissue, the satellite cell with the, the T cells, and then it starts differentiating, proliferating, differentiating, and then eventually it donates its nuclei and you can synthesize protein. They hypertrophy, stuff like that, okay? These type of things happen. So he says when you come back, essentially you could get big fast because you have these nuclei. Well, because you don't have to go through all that damaging stage to get the nuclei. So you come back to the gym, you most likely it's because you're eating more protein. You work out and then you eat more protein. That's it.
Here again. All right?
Yeah.
See where we're going with this?
Yeah, I see where you're going. Yeah.
So that's why when you've been at a previous size, when you lose the muscle, you're able to get back there much quicker. It doesn't happen overnight, right? You don't regain.
Yeah, but like I said, it's very minimal. If you did get these nuclei, it's very minimal. You got them usually when? When you were untrained. What's a unique feature of eccentric exercise is that untrained subjects become stiff and sore next day due to what? Muscle damage. And then you don't become damaged anymore. It becomes resistant from further assaults from your exercises because you become concentric lifting slaves in the gym now.
20 pounds of muscle tissue
Like
a month. That doesn't happen. But when you start
When's the last time Blaha ever built a muscle?
looking at regaining 20 pounds that you've lost, it might have taken you years to build, right? 20 pounds of muscle, you start.
It doesn't take you years to build muscle. What's he talking about? It happens in damaging stages. If you got damaged, then you built muscle. If you didn't damage anything, then you didn't build any muscle. It's really simple. It's like this, dude. If you didn't damage those muscles, then you didn't build any muscle. If you damaged them, then you built some. And I don't know how many damaging cycles you went through to build muscles. Maybe it was only once or twice, okay? Because all of you are a bunch of pussies out there. You don't like to get damaged. You want to be comfortable lifting slaves, lifting concentrically, throwing weights up in the air. Get it?
I mean, you can build it faster than the novice did originally. You might be building 30 pounds of it a month in that state. So it might take you 6 months to rebuild that muscle. It took you, possibly a year or two or whatever to build the first time. Right? You build it in 6 months.
No, it took you 1 week to build it the first time. Like it says in that map, in nuclei overload precedes hypertrophy, loss on detraining.
You can gain muscle that faster, right? Simply because you have the machinery to grow it faster. And we've seen this happen over and over. And experts have tried to figure out why, but the prevailing hypothesis.
Why? Because you're not damaging muscles anymore. That's why you're not getting addition of nuclei. You're not building any muscles because you're not damaging them anymore. Get it, dude? You forego the eccentric so you could lift concentrically now and be a comfortable lifting slave. That's why.
Is because we keep all those muscle fiber nuclei. All right, this is where we get interesting. So then what happens when I'm...
You don't keep all of them. If you starve yourself, they'll go away, dude.
Drugs. There was a study done, over a decade ago, fascinating study, to where they took a bunch of power lifters, right, and lifters,
drugs,
who claimed they had never used steroids or tested. They said later that we didn't use any. They used them as control.
Here he goes with the drugs. Drugs.
And then they took a group of lifters who all, in the surveys, they wanted lifters who admitted they used anabolic steroids for more than 1 year. Okay, so long-term use. And they wanted ones who were former steroid users and even no longer serious power lifters. Okay? And when they did those studies and they took those people and they wanted them to have stopped using steroids at least 3 years. 3 years with no gear. What do you think they found? Well, when they studied their trapezius muscles, they did biopsies of them because we know there's a lot more androgen receptors.
Yeah, they did tests on some steroid people and they found they had a little extra nuclei, a little bit addition of extra nuclei. Want to know why? Because they injected strength in them. They were able to lift slightly heavier than the natural lifter. That's what. And so the eccentric, obviously, if they went much more heavier, then the eccentric load going down gave them some damage. And it gave them some damage, It activated a satellite cell. A satellite cell had to donate nuclei to that domain to support a little bit of muscle growth. That's all, synthesizing protein. But to really grow muscle, you have to go through repeated bouts of these injuries because you really want to keep remodeling your muscles, not just getting nuclei. See what I mean? Here's the thing. You don't want to just damage once or twice or 3 times throughout lifting of 30 years of lifting. You want to go through repeated bouts of repair and remodeling your muscles. You understand me? Not just getting an addition of these nuclei because, whoa, I've awakened the satellite cell. Oh, I did something and it woke up and it donated its nuclei to support some muscle growth, synthesized protein. Get it? In other words, just to mass up the muscle fiber, had these nuclei to mass them up through protein synthesis. See what I mean? You understand me? And so when you go away, they shrink. They shrink because your muscles, they don't necessarily shrink if you kept going through repair and remodeling phases. You built more fiber, more muscle if you keep doing that repetitively. So that's why people who've done that, they look like bodybuilders all the time. I walk around, I never lose muscle. I always look like a bodybuilder. You understand me? I always stay at a consistent weight and it always stays the same. But if I want additional muscle and it to stay, then I'm going to have to go through repeated bouts of these injuries to keep repeatedly injuring the muscles so that they could go through a remodeling stage constantly so I can have more permanent muscle. I don't want just nuclei so they can synthesize some mass.
Some of those muscles and some of the others where you're going to really get the steroid gains. Okay? They found that their muscle fiber nuclei count was way higher than average.
Yeah, because they lifted heavier. And then, of course, if they lifted heavier, the eccentric going down now, previously what they were doing, lifting lighter or whatever, not so heavy, it adapted. So now that they lifted even heavier, well, the eccentric going down, it didn't do it before, so they were unaccustomed to doing it. So it went down, it caused a small amount of damage, activated the satellite cell donated its nuclei. That's about it. But just this addition of nuclei, that's not going through these remodeling stages. You understand me? Because you guys are so gung-ho on concentric lifting. So these scientists, whoa, they did a study and everything. Blaha is so dumb, he doesn't even understand the study. He doesn't understand it, doesn't capiche, doesn't compute in his brain.
And when they compared it to the drug-free power lifters, they had more nuclei in those muscle fibers than the drug.
Yeah, the drug-free lifter is lifting comfortably in the gym concentrically. They're only going so heavy. Notice how heavy they're lifting. I showed you in the beginning, the nuclei overload precedes hypertrophy, not lost on detraining. Untrained, first training, satellite cell fusion, hypertrophy. Boom, get it? What's a unique feature of eccentric exercise is that untrained subjects become stiff and sore next day due to what? Muscle damage. Okay. So they've adapted to their exercises. But what's the difference between the steroid guy and the natural guy? Well, the steroid guy, they injected strength. So they go crazy. They lift superly heavy weight. So they may get one or two more adaptations in the eccentric form that the natural guy's not getting because he's not lifting that heavy. Do you understand me? That's it. Just lowering the weight eccentrically, but they're not doing eccentric exercise. That's why they have very little muscle growth there. It's mostly sarcoplasmic. See what I mean? That's the difference. They're not doing eccentric exercise. If the natural guy started doing more eccentric overload training, he'd look like the steroid guy. But steroids, they don't build muscles. They just put in the sarcoplasmic. They just increase the sarcoplasm. They're wasting drugs. Because none of these people are lifting eccentrically. I told you. They're all lifting concentrically, and that's not associated with muscle growth.
Free powerlifters did. And it was considerably more. So what does that tell us? That when you come off the drugs, any muscle that you gain from them, the muscle tissue might be lost, but just like with the old muscle memory, those nuclei stay.
Okay, so they went off the steroids. They got some extra nuclei than what the natural person got. And so what? What about the sarcoplasm that increased holding the energy and they're keeping them alive, taking these wasting drugs. Okay, that all shrinks away. And then there's some nuclei there. Okay, let's say that it goes away. Okay, how big can a steroid person get if he has these additional nuclei? How big can he get now, right? Without increasing the sarcoplasm, just the nuclei synthesizing some protein, lifting in the gym. How far do you think he could get? Not very far. See what I mean? Not very much there is going on. See what I mean? That's why they take steroids. They take steroids because they don't understand bodybuilding. They don't know it's about remodeling muscles, damaging and remodeling them consistently, because they don't do eccentric work.
So that means it's someone who's been a lot bigger from using anabolics and they shrink down, they're always going to be able to have a higher potential. And if they go back and use gear again, they really blow up fast. Didn't we see that with some pro bodybuilders who took whatever, 3?
They blow up fast, just the nuclei, because the steroids will help synthesize protein. That's about it. But they blow up a lot of the sarcoplasm blows up. That's what happens.
4 months off from training. Sometimes some of them shrink down to almost nothing. Quit training, quit using gear, and all of a sudden they look like they look almost like a normal guy.
Yeah, they quit training and then whatever, they look like a normal guy. They look like a normal guy. Again, they didn't gain that much nucleides. Very small amount there. They go off their steroids, they look like a normal guy because the sarcoplasm shrinks. And they lose their strength lifting a heavy weight. So these nuclei, they're just kind of like shrinking away. And they're not eating as much as they would normally eat.
Right? Right? And then they use stuff and they blow back up because that muscle memory from that works like training, except that they have muscle memory from being way bigger. So it really matches. It matches perfectly with what we know about muscle memory on a larger scale. So it really seems to support that hypothesis. All right, guys, well, that's really all I have to say on that today. I hope it's been...
I like how he says hypothesis. It's a hypothesis. So there you go. See you in the next one, friends. Don't you think about that? Like, subscribe, support the channel. Blah's funny.